everybody, good morning, happy Wednesday, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands and voice and everything else, Justin and Quimby, I don't know, Quimby, I'm just your name, I don't know what it is lately. I was so flawless for so long, but my brain lately with Quinn, I don't even know anymore. I don't know. I just don't know. It's going to be that kind of thing. It's that kind of morning all. Yep. Yes, Guten Morgen. Awesome. Yes, I see things are shipping. Ships are shipping. Shipping. Meta ship. That's a meta ship, right? If you're shipping a ship, it's meta. It's like meta shipping. Something like that. Shipping those ships. Ship those ships out. Hello, Bob and Julie. Oh, what do I want to do today? Liner Ray. Got it. Yeah, I remember this. All right. I'm going to block in her base today. And I think I want... Can I stick her on something? Let's see. I just want to sit her on something that I can hold that's not her base at this point. This base fits really well. Is this a Reaper? It is! It's a Reaper 74030. So that is an appropriate base. And she fits pretty perfectly on it. I think I can get her to like totally sock it in. I'm trying to see if she goes over the edge anywhere. But I think she's just about... Oh, she goes over maybe a little bit on the front. I see. Maybe. No, actually... She's really close. I think if I use gel super glue, she'll be fine. But at this point, I want her on something. Because I want to paint her skirt and figure out what I'm doing with it. I think the skirt needs to be blue and pink. I think. Or maybe we'll go with the colors we're doing on the back. Which is going to be more bringing a pink and red up to oranginess. But yeah, we'll see. We're going to mess around today. Anyway, where is my awesome jelly glue? Jelly glue. And I have backup jelly glues in case this jelly glue. Yeah, I just super glue on. Don't overthink it, Omen. It is what it is. The glue that I use depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a Slotta base, I use Zap-A-Gap, which is more of a fluidy. It's the CA+, the green label, so it's medium body. If I'm doing something like this, where something flat is going onto a base and I want it to stick well, I'll use Loctite Ultra Gel, which is a thick, very jelly glue that fills, but it's not necessarily as strong. But when I've got a good fit, a good flat fit with a lot of surface area, I'll use it. I don't tend to like gels for putting together some stuff because it does, the fact that it's a gel does weaken the bond. It's not as strong. The strongest bond is the super thin super glue, but you can only use that if you have a perfect fit, and you almost never have that with miniatures. Plus, it's messy if you put too much on. So I tend to the thinnest super glue I tend to use is the Zap-A-Gap medium body. I do like the squeezy mechanism for the Loctite. I'm gonna put a thin bead all around the edge. I mean, I could put her on a bigger foot, but her foot is pretty good. Too dope. I don't think I need more than this. She is top heavy, but any extra circumference. The other nice thing about the gel glue is that, yeah, this fits fine. I'm gonna let that set for just a second. But the other nice thing about the gel glue is that you have wiggle room because it takes a minute to set. Thinner super glues tend to set faster. Like they'll set and then you'll move them and you'll feel the break and you're like, oh noes. Because it won't be quite as good the second time. But with the gel super glue, you have sometimes to smoosh things around, which is nice. Yeah, she's pretty well balanced. I mean, yes. Yeah, for sure, because it's not like the danger runniness, right? So I'm going to let her set, and I wanted to use some neutrals on this, and we haven't yet. Shield Brown is my kind of go-to neutral when I'm using kind of muted out colors like we are on this model. because it's actually a muted brown. So like where colors like russet brown and ruddy leather are much more vibrant and have a lot more punch to them, the shield brown's a little bit gray. And so, I mean, she is top heavy, but her foot is pretty wide with the dress going out behind Too Dope. So if you want her to be a little more stable on the table, see what I did there? Then I would put her on a slightly bigger base. Like I said, this one gives her about an additional quarter to 3/8 inch, which is going to make her extremely stable, I think. I still like keeping her base small, though, because it's part of the composition of the figure. So, like, the fact that when you have a base that's smaller than the top, even though that means the figure is top-heavy, it also means that the figure's dynamic, right? It feels more cool and interesting because it's off balance. Because it's got a tinier foot than it has a top. So it's more visually interesting to have a top-heavy figure, but that's why I wouldn't go really wide with the base. I don't think she needs it. I believe in only putting as much basing on a figure as it absolutely needs. I don't ever want to go over. Let me see if this is pretty stable. Okay, good. Excellent. Excellent. All right. I just wanted something to hold instead of her base. So I'm going to do shield brown here, but then we are going to add touches of the glowing blue spores as well. Because I want to repeat that motif around the figure. I want that to be kind of the magical energy around her. I want it to be blue. So we'll probably do the brown base, and then we're going to bring that up a little bit and start introducing some blue. We may even highlight this with blue. I mean, wait under the base. If you glue a couple pennies on there and you do have room, you could do that, or washers, whatever you like, really. This is like fungal growth. Like you see this in caves, and you could either do like it's you can see kind of the vines and stuff coming up the sides, but I'm gonna do it more like it's a cave, like almost like a stalagmite. Because it could also be that. It could also be built up deposits, right? So you could do either. This is a scheme based on the mushroom person from the Monster Manual, War Shadow. I really love the concept art for these pieces in the Monster Manual for these guys. It's a really nice piece of art. So I wanted to base it. It's based on the bigger guy. If you look up at my camera, you can see. So the bigger guy has the olive green, there we go, better. Olive green, pink, brown, and blue. So I really love that. Usually I work from nature, but often, relatively often, if I see a really good piece of fantasy art, kind of like the Wyvern, I'll adopt that. I'll just go for it. Like the Wyvern, we totally did not go natural on. We went with a piece of concept art that was really fantastic. But I think with the Wyvern, you run into just like boringness if you don't. Like with the Wyvern, I definitely wanted to make it a much more interesting model than most people would paint a Wyvern, because they're just depicted as kind of drab, reddish brown. And with the mushroom people, I mean, people are familiar with most of the most colorful mushrooms. And, the red with the white spots and all that. And I didn't really want to do that, and I really liked that art. So let us start with our brown and then highlight it with blue, because that's fun and unusual. I'm going to grab a little bit. Oh, got to shake that a little better, Anne. Probably a little bit of blackened to shade this down with. I could do walnut. I probably should do walnut. I don't want to get it too vibrant. I don't want to use like black, but I could do brown liner too. Actually, brown liner works. Let's do that. Just want to get a little bit of a shadow built up and a mid-tone, and then we're going to highlight it up by adding light blue. Yeah, why not, Loman Kitten? I can't have coffee until later, Crowley. Actually, today is Wednesday. I can't have coffee at all. I actually had coffee yesterday because I felt so sleepy. Did not sleep great the night before. So I'm trying to curb my coffee habit since I realized that the espresso, the coconut milk lattes weren't really irritating my guts as much as other coffee does. So I was giving in to the urge to have coffee more often. But then I became dependent on caffeine, and I also hate that, so I decided to back off on it. All right, so we're going to go, and I'm actually going to mute out this brown just a little bit. I'm going to add a touch of bleached linen to it. Where are you, bleached linen? There you are. My favorite off-white. Yeah, right, exactly. That is, sometimes you can go fantasy with it. I mean, never be afraid not to. But on the other hand, if you want your monster to look like it might actually exist in the real world and go more naturalistic, definitely base it on actual, like, creature colors when you go to put together your scheme. Even with the blue and yellow, there are lizards in New Mexico and Arizona that have a blue-gray and yellow-brown coloration that are really pretty. I think they're pretty. They're all over the place. So you could have gone with that, and that would have been a very natural, and yet still stuck with your blue and yellow color scheme. But yes, if you were going for venomous, then you can always go that way too. Right, exactly. But the thing is about those exceptions, Silverthorn, is nobody's going to believe it. Right? If you're going to go naturalistic, predictably. You could always find a monster, like there are pink octopi, I think. Like, there's some crazy animals out there that are crazy colors. But when you paint them that way, nobody believes you if you say that, it's actually based on a real creature. So it depends on what you're going for. It always depends on what you're going for. I tend to like to do a lot of natural stuff. And I tend to like to use that on supernatural creatures because I think it's not done that much and that it tends to look really good, like with Sphinx, if you guys recall. Like, Sphinx turned out beautifully because we based her on a real bird instead of doing something fantasy. Sometimes I feel like fantasy lacks depth. And I feel like you get more depth if you do more depth and interest if you do a fantasy creature in real markings. Yeah, there's all sorts of crazy creatures out there. I'm going to use a crappy brush for blocking in my base coat. I have some crappy brushes, so lately I've been appreciating them for blocking in base coats, where I don't want to care about how I'm punishing the brush. So this is a nice color, and it's giving us a slightly different tone here. We've actually, with this, we almost transmit over into a red, yellow, blue color scheme, except I'm going to be dulling down this brown. Like, you could easily, because this brown has a certain golden tone to it, you could easily have it go that way. I may make some of the vines green. I don't know. See, here now I can see some of these, like, vines and stuff going, being green. So maybe I will bring some green down at first and then go to the blue glowiness at the bottom. I do want to be consistent with my color scheme. Whereas these little funguses, the back of her dress is definitely mushrooms. So those I'm going to paint differently. Those will go back to her color scheme, probably. Because I want to repeat some colors on the back of the model. So it's all, when you're painting a monster where it's got all this weird stuff on it, it's like you just kind of sometimes have to make a judgment call on what it is. And you aren't wrong. Like, technically the sculptor could tell you, well, I meant for that to be blah. But, you can always paint it like X or Y if you want to. And not, go aside. Once it's in your hands, it's your canvas. It's like, once you write a book, the book belongs to the people who read it. You just got to get it out of your head. That's all your story, because now you shared it with a bunch of people, and they're going to have their own interpretations. And that's as it should be. I don't prime Omen Kitten. I've never felt the need. I just wash the models in hot water with a little bit of dish soap in a plastic tub. Just swoosh them around. I don't use a toothbrush. I've never needed one. I don't think scrubbing them is strictly necessary. But you know what? If it works for you, then awesome. Go for it. Do it. Whatever. I don't really care what people do. Just, be aware that certain primers react with bones and you don't want to, use that. So do be cautious if you're using a product where you're not sure how it's going to react. But I honestly just don't feel like it's necessary to prime bones. I kind of like that I don't have to prime bones. But I've always found that the paint bonds well enough to the surface. It is very rare that I get a area where the paint where the paint doesn't want to stick, and usually that's because I've thinned my paint for my base coat, and I've just run into an area that's a little more hydrophobic. When I thicken my paint, I almost always can get by it. There is no, there's only flame war when people, get so invested in their decisions that they think everybody else should do what they do. I think that's kind of silly. I've always felt that the wars, the primer wars between black and white primer, were very silly things. Because the bottom line is, does it work for you? Great, do it. Well, does it work for you and not harm anybody? If you're priming your models and they're off-gassing at your paint club and people are keeling over, then that's not so much a good thing. But, you get the idea. But yeah, please be accepting of everybody's way to do things. You may think it's wrong, but it doesn't really matter because it's not your model. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grab my plastic mixing bowl, I throw a bunch of bones models in there, I run a bunch of hot water. Not boiling or hot, but, hot. So that it helps me to unbend things, too, if I want to. Hot and just a drizzle of dish soap, just a little bit. You don't want serious suds. You just want enough to take off any greasiness or mold release. And then I just swoosh them around with my fingers in a circle for about 30 seconds. Rinse them in that bowl until the water runs without suds. Then I set them on a paper towel to dry overnight, and ta-da, there it is. That's all I do. Now I do find that I definitely do need to do that if I'm going to use a thinner base coat. So I like to use thin base coats, and I use them even on bones. You can paint bones out of the package if your paint is out of the bottle thick. But I like to thin my base. And so washing the model essentially just lets me paint like I would paint any model with a thin base coat. Whereas if I did not wash the model, I would still be not using a primer, but I would have to use thicker paint. Let's let this get together. I'm going to start shading it a little bit. I'm going to grab my troll, or was it troll? Yeah, troll hide, because that's my favorite olive since Swamp Green got canceled. I'm going to grab my troll hide so I can work some of the greens down in the upper parts of this, but then I'm going to go to blue glowy things on some of the outer areas. So where's my troll? That's not troll summoning in the chat. No trolling in the chat. Just troll on my palette. Troll hide. Beautiful olive green. You should own it. If you don't, that entire Monster Skin Tones set is, the Monster Colors set is really useful. Kobold Scale is really, I love that paint. Yeah, it's interesting that normally I don't see a lot of... I mean, I see a tiny bit of rub-off. If you're handling a model, you're going to get rub-off. There is no sealer on Earth that's going to give your model that ultra shield of will not ever rub off. I mean, just get that out of your head. If you handle it a lot, if it falls over on the gaming table, if other people handle it a lot, if people roll dice into it, it's going to chip. It's going to rub off. Just, it's one of those things about miniatures. But it shouldn't rub off a lot is the key. That's what sealers and all the rest of that do for you, is that maybe it just rubs off a little bit on one edge that you tend to pick it up by. we go, troll. But yeah, I mean, it's best if you kind of track what you're doing. If you're testing something specifically, like you're trying to figure out if you need to prime the model or if you need to seal the model, because I don't seal my minis either. Then definitely track what you're doing if you're really trying to improve a specific aspect of your painting. Kind of put it to the test. Yeah, that sounds like something weird to me, Omen. It almost sounds like the paint wasn't shaken enough or something. It's weird. Unless you picked him up by his staff a lot. But even then, the whole thing shouldn't have rubbed off. It's just weird. Alrighty. So I'm going to extend these olive green snaky things a little bit. Oh, I thinned it just a little bit too much there. 1 second. I'm gonna add another drop of paint. Heavy paint, I mean, is only needed on the base, really. And even then, I mean, I just put a solid coat on. I don't want to see the bones material through it. That's as long as I can get a solid base coat on, I'm good. After that, go to thinned. But I mean, at one thick base coat, Omen is not going to... It's not going to matter. Like, you'd have to try so hard to fill in detail. The exception to that is our primer. Our primer is thick. It will fill in detail. But, I mean, if I used this troll right out of the bottle and I went really thick on it, chances are... The only thing I might notice, that the danger with that is cracking. Especially if you're doing 2 coats or you're not sure if the paint is dry when you put another coat over the top. You can get that crackling effect. I need a liner, but I have a dark brown, so I'm going to use it. Yeah, I don't get that kind of rub off even when I don't prime. So I would blame it on something else. What's the saying is like causation is not the same as correlation. So, or correlation is not the same as causation. So you didn't prime, so your mini had its paint rub off. That doesn't mean that it's the lack of primer that caused that. You would have to do more experiments to determine if that was the case. Humans tend to do correlation is causation a lot. We like simple answers. We're working on it. Hello, Calendril. Welcome. Thank you. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing with all this crazy stuff down here. Because originally I wanted to treat it like stalagmites with glowing energy. But then I noticed that some of it is definitely vines coming down off of her. Like these tendril things coming down off of her. So I'm trying to fit those in. And then go over to more on my brown. So getting in just a little bit of green down here. I don't really have that on the back, though. On the other side. So maybe we're just going to have that bit. Because otherwise this looks like it's like growths coming up from the floor. Yeah, that's helpful, Mathophile. Although it does come back to your own materials and your own practice as well. I mean, he could show that there's a lot of rub off if you don't prime, but I haven't experienced that. So for me, that's not true. But I also don't handle my models every day. So if it's a gaming model, you may get better mileage if you prime. You may not. I don't know. But sealers are fine. After the model is totally covered with paint, you've got a layer between where you are and where you're going. All right, just a little bit of green. Maybe I'll put a little bit of green down. I'm just like kind of going by my gut feel now, and I'm like, well, if I put a little green there, maybe I'll just put a tiny hint of green down at the edges of these. They look like mushrooms, but they could also be just like stalagmite, like kind of formations, or a bit of both. So I am going to paint them however I want and let the viewer interpret them. But I will put a little bit of this green down, I think, at the roots of them. So I feel like that would be a good practice. But yeah, I mean, other people's experiences and experiments are valuable to look at. But I mean, the one experiment that really matters is how you function and how you paint. So do absorb information, but if it doesn't quite work the way it did for them when you try it, I mean, be open to switching up your method. Yeah, exactly, Agent. That's the thing, is I use brush on sealer if I'm going to ship a model, for sure. Because the shipping process just puts extra stress on the model. But, I'm using a crappy brush, by the way, right now, guys, because I'm just blocking. Craptastic brush. No, not a great point. It is a cheaper Sable. It's a Winsor & Newton. But it's not a Series 7. But I like the size of it for this larger model. And I'm not looking for precision right now. I'm just looking to get some details blocked in and see if I like it. Yeah, Saffreko, I don't know. They do kind of look like those kind of tenderly mushrooms, don't they? I'm just going to paint them how I'm going to paint them, and people can like it or not like it. It's up to them. This is the foundation of art. You should paint it to please yourself. And it's the same with writing. You should write to please yourself. And be ready if people just don't, grok it like you do. But somebody will probably understand you. It doesn't say you should, dispense with quality if you're aiming for a quality paint job, but as far as color choices, sometimes, if you like it, it's probably okay. There may be another color scheme that would be a little bit better or a little bit more appealing, but if you like it, you like it. Now, if all your friends tell you what terrible color sense you have, then maybe you want to reevaluate, but, You should always listen to criticism when the criticism is consistent and from several different people. If you're interested in getting, better or getting your work to, be well regarded. Great, Saffreko. Pretty much, Calendril. That's my thought. Originally, I thought they were cave formations, but I'll add a little bit of that green down there so that, for one thing, adding the green shadows here, guys, lets me repeat this color. Otherwise, the green is very much central and it doesn't spread out and it's not going to be on the underside of the cap here. So adding it down here lets me kind of repeat the color, and I do like to repeat colors around the model, so tend to make a more holistic effect. That's funny, Valendar. I mean, the only time it's going to matter, the only times it matters if you are, painting to you and your color sense is not the greatest, is if you're trying to sell models on Etsy or eBay or whatever, and, then your color choices don't resonate with your audience and the model doesn't sell or it doesn't sell for as much, Or if you're trying to enter a painting competition and you're just rabidly going against some of the things that I kind of feel like if it really looks bad, if it really looks ugly, you might get dinged on color composition. Or you know, chances are we're going to ask you, you know, well, what were you going for here? You know, because sometimes when I see a model with color comp that's just bad, I find out that the person is in fact a little colorblind in a particular way. And that explains it, because they're seeing the color completely different than I am. But yeah, otherwise, it doesn't really matter. In fact, if you're painting monsters for your D&D games and the color schemes totally offend your players, they're just going to have more fun killing them. So really, there's no downside there. I decided on this stream calendrill, I seldom do big bases because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of sculpting. And I don't usually have that for these guys. Like, that's doing big bases and scenic basing techniques is usually what I do on my own models more than the models for this stream. That said, I have sculpted some stuff for bases before on this stream when I was really inspired, but I have to be really inspired, and I'm not really inspired for her. So that's why I just glued her down to this small base. If I had been really inspired for a big base, I would have maybe gone for the pie plate and gotten myself more room. But the other thing that would have done is throw off the composition, because putting her on that giant plate, that balances out her top and bottom more, and it's a less interesting and dynamic composition. So I tend to go for, if I can go for a smaller base and a larger top, or build upwards instead of outwards, I will, because it's a lot more visually interesting to the human eye. So there's several considerations there that I'm drawing from. What was the last one I did basing on? Was it Snake Lady? We're going to do a base on Orc, but it's going to be pretty low key. Because again, I just don't want to spend a lot of time on basing. Usually with these for Reaper, I'm just going to be putting a simple base on it. If I did anything, if I had chosen to do anything, I probably would have done water. I guess Cave Troll. Cave Troll got some sculpting too, because he had a big flat base and I felt like I wanted more. But again, he was a model I actually kept. So I liked him enough to actually keep him. So I have to really like the model if I'm going to do a big base on it. And that's not to do anything with the sculpt. It's usually to do with my paint job. Like with Troll, I really liked the dramatic lighting effect that we got on him. And with Snake Lady, same thing. I did some OSL and I really liked it. She did, but I didn't finish it, Estro. Like, I wanted to put her on a carpet, and it was exciting until it, like, just got too long on the video, and then I was just like, it's done. I may finish her eventually, but right now, she got thrown in a corner. Yeah, I didn't do a money bowl. I decided that was a mistake, Twisted Oma. That's exactly why. This is exactly why I'm not putting, like, exhaustive bases on the Reaper stuff anymore, or on the stuff that I do on this stream. Is that if I try to force it and I'm just not loving it, I will just get sick of doing it. And we tend to cover it fast on stream. Like when we do a base on stream, you cover what you can cover and explain, usually in the first stream, but then the base usually isn't done. So you end up recovering that territory or doing more of the same. And for a teaching stream, that can get very boring for the viewer. So there we go. We got some nice greenish tones now. That's resonating nicely. So yeah, the dancer never got finished, and she may never get finished because I made the mistake of trying to force a base on her and then just not liking it that much. I mean, I probably will just add another tassel, toss the money bowl, and just be done. But like, I don't usually bother with that because it's a stream, right, Shadow Raven? Like, it's really the model that's important on the stream for Reaper. It's not my own basing creations. This is not a stream about basing or scenic stuff. It's about painting Reaper minis. So, mostly, it's just going to be that I just don't bother with basing on some of these. I'll just do a simple base off stream so that I can get it to Ron. I mean, we do fill-in basing where, you know, if the stonework or whatever that's on the model's base doesn't extend all the way to the edge of the base I put it on, then we'll sculpt. Yep. And that happens, Twisted Oma. It happens to the best of us. I mean, David's got all sorts of, like, models that he did a great job on up to a point, and then he completely just kind of went, I'm just not feeling this, and those models are all over, in that case, on that side of the room. I am somewhat happy that I have fewer of them than he does. Dancing Girl's still hanging in there, and if I get a bit of oomph and a bit of inspiration, I may finish her. I'll probably finish her to hand her into Ron, and that's about it. But although I liked parts of her, I wasn't super thrilled with her, so not to the point where I was thrilled with many other models that I painted. Many of the models I painted on stream I like a lot. Some I like less, and some I like more. Just like with all of our painting hobbies. Sometimes you paint something and you're like, I really like this one. Yeah, Slytherin. For sure. I mean, they said that the orders they were shipping today are really big. So if you had a big order that was delayed by a ship, then you have a good chance, I think. What you should be doing is prepping all the room you need to store all this stuff. Unless you've already done that, in which case, kudos, you are prepared. So what I'm doing, guys, I'm taking the walnut brown and shield brown mixture, and I'm darkening in some of the crevices and stuff, just to bring out more details. You can see that it's much more interesting up there than it is down here until you get over to this side where I've got more drama. I select them again. I paint what I feel like, because otherwise it would really turn into Anne really doesn't feel like painting this model and is really annoyed at it. So yeah, they let me choose what I paint. In the beginning, when I started this show, we tried to utilize models that weren't selling as well, but that I still felt were really good minis and needed some attention. But now I just grab whatever, because the advantage of doing a paint job on a model that's popular, like this Fungal Queen, is that then people can get ideas for their own stuff by watching you paint it. I mean, their ideas may be totally different from yours, and usually are, but people always like to recognize, oh, I've got that model, what's she gonna do with it, right? And then it gives you maybe a springboard or an idea of what you want to do with yours. So now I just paint whatever. Sometimes I really like to feature models that I think are awesome, like the Centaur from the Greek Odyssey, so I'm definitely going to paint him at some point, even if he's not the most popular model in Greek Odyssey. For me, I really like him, so... Sometimes I get lucky and the stuff I pick is stuff that Ron just doesn't have a painted example of, so... But mostly what I'm looking for, the reason that I stopped just picking models that, you know, weren't selling that great that I wanted to draw attention to, is that this show being about techniques, I want to choose a wide variety of figures and subject matter so that I'm not always covering the same stuff. Well, I mean, how to get through painting something you don't want, Zen. It's, you just have to button share. It's the same way you finish writing your novel. It's button share every day. And also reward yourself. Like, if it's something that you swore that you would paint for your mom for Christmas, but you're just hating it, but you gotta do it, you've committed and you want to get it done, it really is. Like, for me, it's one of the only times, painting in the evening is one of the only times I can sit and listen to my music. Because David's often, like, playing a computer game or something, and so he doesn't mind if I'm not totally, like, interacting with him. And that's a big reward for me, is getting to sit and listen to my tunes. Because I love music. I love my music. So, and also, like, in the afternoon, if I'm doing something and I'm not thrilled with it, you know, then I'll make myself a cup of tea or coffee, something special that I don't normally make for myself. Things like that. It's just tricks. It's tricks to make you enjoy part of the process. The other trick is to find one thing on the model that you actually like Like, get excited about one thing on the model that you really like. And if it's, you know, if the sculpt is not that great and you're having trouble with that, then figure out something you can make look better than it is, maybe. If it's an old model, that's common. I mean, I'm painting a set of just really kind of like sculpted like they were from the 80s models for a commission, and they are not great sculpts, and that's a huge understatement. But I can find something to like in the process. Like doing the tiny freehand designs that are in the concept art, you know. I can have fun with that. So find something that you enjoy doing on the model is kind of it. Right, exactly, Sephiroth. And then you're not really paying attention, right? You've got your brain kind of distracted. This is the same if I'm listening to music, as I'm thinking about my book or my writing or my whatever, and I'm just painting. And you'll get through it eventually. And that and just working on it a little bit every night, like essentially say, all right, I'm going to spend half an hour working on this model for my mom for Christmas that I don't like. But then after I do a half an hour, I can spend an hour working on a model that I really like for me. That kind of trade-off. I mean, that requires you to be accountable to yourself. Always a good idea to get into the habit of doing that anyway. I am just mixing up some dark blue because I got an idea. And that's Nightmare Black plus Cyan Blue. I realized that I could do these kind of interior areas in a glowing blue. And we can do a little lighting effect down there. That could be fun. So I'm going to do that. I'm mixing up my blue. I'm going to add white to it. It's about half and half Nightmare Black and Cyan, and then I'm going to add some white to build a light blue. Right, yeah, they're not your thing. Yeah, just reward yourself, do a little bit a night. It's amazing how much you get done if you only commit like 20 minutes or half an hour a night. 20 minutes is a stretch unless you've got a painting area set up, but I can sit down any day of the week and put 20 minutes in on a model and finish a small part of it. So, yeah, it's starting. There's a name for that some creative people have coined called resistance calendril. And it's not, I'm sure depression can make it worse, but it's, even when you're not depressed, that can hit you. Let's see, I think that's a pretty good blue to start with. And it's just the resistance to actually sitting down and starting anything creative. And it's just, it happens to me all the time. Sometimes you gotta trick yourself to get the butt in the chair. But yeah, it's common to many humans. I think a lot of humans, because people have written books about it. That inertia that you feel to sitting down and just doing the thing you really want to do. Like sometimes, but you'll wander off and get distracted, even though you like really want to do the thing. So I'm going to try this. We're going to do a proof of concept on this area. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it tends to be more with creative pursuits, but it can be anything that you want to do. I mean, writers and artists run into it all the time. It's like poison. It's the biggest barrier to getting the model done, to getting the short story written, to getting the article completed, to getting your thesis actually finished, you know? It's just that inertia, that feeling, even if you want to work on it, sometimes will pounce you. And I found the best way to tackle it is just to sit down and not think about it too much. Like, I'll be thinking about sitting down to work on my novel, which makes me really happy, by the way. I love writing. I really know that, you know, I'm happy with my novel and how it's coming. And yet I'll suddenly get like, I should just get on Facebook and check if there are any messages from this person who I'm waiting for a response from. I'll get that, right? And then if you listen to that, then before you know it, half an hour is gone or more. And you're disappointed in yourself because you didn't sit down to do the thing. So I'm trying to combat it with habit formation. With the painting part, anyway. Here we go. So we've got some bright blue. Now let's see if I like it. All right, it'll work. I do the sticky note thing, Omen. My sticky note thing is here. Sometimes I do tiny swatches. Attached to the back by the sticky part is the top part of the card from the model, so that I have the item number, the sculptor, and the name of the model. I also lately have been using these watercolor cards instead, and in that case I have to actually glue or tape down the card. But I like the watercolor cards because they're a bit thicker, and if I'm going to do a lot of swatches of what I use, then the watercolor cards are really good for that. So it's all whatever works for you. Some people keep a little book. Yep, some people keep a Google Doc or spreadsheet. Some people just take photos on their phones of the miniature with the paints that they used, and then they just sort those into folders on their phone. I'm very bad about sorting things into folders, so I find the sticky note works for me. When I do this method, Omen, because I keep my in progress work all on this bookshelf over here on my right, I just put the sticky note right under the model. So the model will sit on its sticky note, and that way all I have to do if I forget what I used is to go here. Grab it when I grab the model. If you've got a good eye for color and you mix a lot, Calendrill, that can work just fine. Yeah, getting into the habit of using an app just seems like an extra step for me. It's just intuitive for me to just jot it down when I use it. But if it works for you, then use it. I mean, it's the same thing with all aspects of painting. It's like, figure out what works for you. Everybody's process is different, and that's part of the awesome. Because then when you are new to the hobby and you want to figure out how to do stuff, there's so many different methods, and one of them is going to resonate with you. I'm going to grab some of my dark blue and my dark brown, and I'm going to mix them together to make kind of a neutral. And I'm going to line around. Now it's time to switch to an actual brush that is not a lower quality sable. So I've been using this, although I have to say for blocking, guys, I'm liking this. It'll essentially what it does is save your brushes. If you use a less expensive brush to block in stuff, that's abuse that you aren't putting onto your awesome detail brushes that are really expensive. So this is just like their professional watercolor sable. It's probably, just from the way it's holding together, I'd say it's probably a grade 3 or 4. It's not as good as a Kolinsky, but it's keeping a nice tip and it's decent. I think it was a $7 brush. Yeah, it's not going to keep as great of a tip, but it definitely was okay for all of this stuff. And then that was wear and tear that I didn't put on my regular brush. I'm trying to do this more often, because brushes are so bloody expensive, and sometimes it's really hard to find them when you need a new one. Like, because everybody knows there's kind of a shortage right now if you're looking for certain brands. So then when I need to go find detail, if I need a line or do something like that, then I switch to my very, very fancy DaVinci Maestro, and I've saved my Maestro some work. Yeah, PaintRack is apparently a really good app. It's just, for some reason, my phone is not what I reach for. And it's probably because I'm a 2D artist from a long time ago. It's probably just habit from when I was a little kid even. It's hard for me to get used to using apps. It's hard for me. Part of it is that I've tried to lower my amount of screen time every day. I've made a conscious effort on it to not be staring at my phone all day. So I really have tried not to get myself in the habit of using a lot of new apps. Although I did pick up Todoist, and I love it. As far as to-do lists go, I love it, love it, love it. I wanted to start a new to-do app because I was trying to kind of reset my schedule when David went back to work this week. And I really like the Todoist so far. It's very easy. It's very intuitive. And I like how they organize it. I live by my to-do lists anyway, so to have a kind of dynamic one that's easy to adjust is really nice. Yeah, Todoist is my new favorite friend, Safaroko. Because I kept a lot of to-do lists, and I like the paper ones because I can cross stuff off. But I like the Todoist, has the little, once you've crossed off all your things on the Todoist, it's like, go enjoy your day. And I love that. That just is like, awesome. Thank you for giving me permission to run off and enjoy the rest of my day. It's those little things, right? It's those little things. I also love that I can just click on a task and reassign it to a later date. If I just didn't get to it and I've realized it's not as urgent or if something changes, it's so easy to just like pop in there and like just click it on a calendar and just reassign it to a different day. And it's just so easy. I love it. Yeah, habits are hard. It has to be easy and accessible. Like, you've got to make it very easy if you're going to do a habit, if you're going to try a habit. Like, and it works best. I've read a lot of books on habit forming because I'm trying to life hack my life. And the best thing you can do is to tag a habit onto the back of an existing habit. So, like, it's a habit to me now to go for my walk after dinner every night. And so what I've done with my painting is I've gotten in the habit, or I'm trying to establish the habit of sitting down when I get back in, I get my water and I come in and sit down and I paint for half an hour. So since I'm working the new painting habit off of the walking habit, it's a lot easier and it's actually setting in a lot faster. Yes, they're taking the habit. I have made a habit out of reading books or listening to books about habits, actually, Valendar. Taking the habit Isengard. Well, then Isengard's going to be more prepared than everybody else. I'm sorry. Calendar, these are going to be glowy, like the glowy areas up here on the hand. And I kind of want, because the best place to use a glow effect, and people had asked if I was going to do a glow effect on this earlier up here, and it was a no. I actually just did a video kind of about that for my Patreon. Because up here you've got a natural shadow that essentially, it won't work to do a glow effect up here. But down here is where light is falling. And it's got the other thing, it's got a backdrop. So these blue puddly things, I can make glow like these fungal bits up here, but I can actually show the glow coming up out of them because I've got this lovely backdrop. And that's going to make an effective glow. So we are going to do OSL on this figure, and that's what I'm setting up right now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, link a habit off a different habit. Exactly, Sephiroth. Yeah, that's frustrating, Tostadoma. My David, at least, like, he'll ask me to remind him. So then it's easy. Then I just put it on my to-do list. Remind David at 6 o'clock about blah. And once I remind him, he does it right away. For us, it was just figuring out, like, the time of day or the time where it was most effective to remind him about stuff. Because he acknowledges that he is bad about reminding himself. But he doesn't mind me reminding him. Alrighty, so let's see. I'm holding off putting blue glowies up here yet. I want to kind of test it down here and see if I like it. But first I'm going to kind of outline a little bit with the dark blue around the outside of these areas. I just want to define them a little. This is my mixture of like Shield Brown Walnut and Nightmare Black. It's not quite as dark as a liner. I'll have to look at the Habitica. I'll check it out and see if it's cool. If it works for me, right? Let me grab a sticky note to write that on. My temporary to-do checklist is always a sticky note, because that's like an old habit. Habitica. I will read some reviews. I feel like I'm doing okay in establishing my new habit, but I do need to like get some other stuff nailed down, so any help I can get is good. Habits are your best friends, or your worst enemies, depending on what habits they are. I just want to define kind of the edge here. Even though I'm going to do a glow, I do want that edge defined. You can always overwrite it later. But even having a little bit of shadow when you're doing a glow effect is not a bad idea if there's like a perceived gap between this outer edge and this inner stuff. Which I kind of feel like there is one kind of sculpted in there. So I'm going to emphasize that. Plus having the darker shadow is going to make it a little bit, give it a little more contrast. And then we'll start... I'm going to kind of continue, I'm going to finish up my green and my brown and make sure I've got all my shadows in, and then we'll play with it. Hey, cool. Oh, nose. I'm sorry you got the COVID. Hopefully it is a mild case. All right, let's grab this shadow stuff. I didn't get my dark brown down here to pull out these details. Once I have this, once I've got these darks blocked in, I'm gonna take my stretch break. And anybody who wishes to stretch may join me. Yeah. Sorry about that, cool. Hang in there. It'll get better. I hate being sick, so I feel it. All right. Let's get a little bit of a shelf here. I think I would like to do this little bit too. All right, that's looking pretty good. Hey Clay, no, this is a Reaper miniature. It was sculpted by Christine Van Patten. That's its item number on the Reaper store, Fungal Queen. This is a show where I'm a professional painter, and I was Reaper staff painter for a long time, and I created their paint line. So every weekday morning at 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time, I am here painting a Reaper miniature. We have a rotation of about 6, and when I finish one, then I add in a new one. So tomorrow we're working on an Elven Sorceress, and then the day after that we're starting a brand new model from the new Kickstarter set, the Greek Odyssey set. So I pretty much hang out for an hour and a half and work on painting. So the paint job is mine as she is in progress, but the sculpt is Christine's. Yeah, no problem. That's what this show is pretty much. And although I am a pro grade painter, I do happily invite questions from people who are newer to the hobby, because I like to teach new people. I used to do it every Saturday at Reaper when I lived in Texas. I taught paint club every week. So if you have any questions about painting, this is the stream forum. I'm just blocking in some shadows before I take a quick stretch break, and then we can get back at it. Trying to get all my little things in here, and then I'm going to try to make these blue parts look like they're glowing. We'll see if we can do it. If I don't like it, I can always paint over it, so. Just want to dab in a little bit more green here. Felt like I lost some of my greeny tones. Yeah. Hey, no problem, Clay. But yeah, these days it's rare to find a sculpting stream unless they're doing 3D stuff. Or it's people like CNOT Bush. He does one-off sculptures and then paints them. But he's a rarity. He's unique in today's world of like miniatures and modeling. Most of the stuff that painters on these streams are painting is stuff they haven't sculpted themselves. Though there are exceptions. Alrighty. I like that balance of blue and brown. So I'm going to take a stretch break, guys. And when I come back, we're going to see if we can map out a glow effect around these blue areas. I am basing it on the monster manual from D&D. There's a great piece of concept art, Thormel, and actually says I'm standing up. I'll just get it. I showed it earlier on the stream, but you were not in, so I'll show it again. But in the new monster manual, there's a lovely piece of Mushroom Man concept art, and so I'm basing it. Let me see if I can get it where the light sheen isn't too bad. There it is. So it's the bigger guy that I'm basing this on. So the olive green and rosy, fleshy pinks and browns, and then a bit of blue. So, although I'm thinking that the cap on the back, I'm going to do more in colors like the little guy. With some, because you can see some of the yellow and orange coming in on here. So I might go with a bit more like that on the back. Yeah, there's a lot of the art in the monster manual that I think is kind of hit and miss. But that one I really liked, so. Usually I look for outside sources for concept art, but I really like that art. Yeah, there are people twitching 3D sculpting for sure. It's just rare to find a miniature painter or sculptor, sculptor. I forget what Derek calls himself. But it's rare to find somebody who both sculpts in small form and then paints it on Twitch. And if you've been sitting for over an hour, feel free to stretch with me, everybody. It's always a good idea. Stretch in accordance with what your body can handle. I just like to remind my spine that it bends backwards as well as forwards. Right, Valandar. Skeinter. Skeinter or Pulpter. Skeinter is usually what people call themselves, because Pulpter sounds kind of weird. They're out there, they're just not streaming the whole process. And traditional sculpting is becoming less and less done, because the 3D stuff is preferred by a lot of companies now. Because they can print it, and they don't have to necessarily do the same process that the green work does. But there are people like Bob and Julie who are here on the stream under the name Green Users, who still do a lot of, or entirely, traditional sculpting with green epoxy. Alright, I'm going to do my floor stretch, and I'll be right back. Yeah, pulpters make orange juice. Hee. Alrighty. We are back. Oh, interesting. Tom Mason did. He's good. Tom's good. I mean, yeah, I would say so, K. Malsum. I mean, if you're sculpting it, you're sculpting it. And then if you print it and paint it, yeah, do it. Go for it. I'm sure there's somebody out there doing that on Twitch. That's the only question is, are they doing it on Twitch or YouTube? All right. I need a lighter blue, a more intense blue for my glowies. Yeah, he's done some Reaper stuff. I think he got very involved in doing his own stuff. I think, didn't he do a Kickstarter along the way? Or at least a couple? I think he got distracted. Like, if you can work for yourself and make it work, then yeah, the time you have to work for other companies is probably minimized. Pardon me, I've got a glob of paint on the end of my white. Gotta hate those globs of paint. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, ZBrush is a big learning curve, so I know a few people who dabble in it. And one who committed hardcore to it and is now making his living as a staff sculptor for Reaper. He used to work under me in the paint department when I worked at Reaper headquarters, and then he transitioned. But he committed hardcore to getting better at it and working on it every day pretty much. Alrighty. Let us see what we can do. I need some pure white also. Is that a good price or a bad price? I mean, it sounds like 30 milliliters is pretty big, so. I don't know how the Payne's Gray from Daler-Rowney is constructed. Is it just blue and black? You can usually tell when you look at it. Or if it's more of a traditional gray, Payne's Gray, which has a few other colors in it. I like the more traditional Paynes. Well, I mean, she has legs. Alright, so I am going to highlight the texture on these little bobbly bits, and then I will start doing white to try to map in a glow effect, and we will see if we can make it work. Just going to put some extra water in my paint to keep it all good, since we are definitely after the halfway point here. Yeah, that's correct. If it's got ochre and magenta in it, then it's a correct Payne's Gray. An old school, shall we say. Old school Payne's Gray. Not cutting corners Payne's Gray. Though technically it's any, I guess magenta works. It was originally Scarlet Lake, I believe. Alright, so I'm using a light blue, and I'm going to use some stippling, since this is a rough surface with lots of little protrusions. Just stipple over that surface, kind of like we did up here. It'll help us stay in theme. Ah, I see. Ah, so it's only two. It has no magenta or ochre. It's hard to tell sometimes, especially in an ink, which is meant to be a little bit different. I was messing around with doing a traditional Payne's Gray. Was one of the last colors I was messing with when I was, before I moved out west away from Reaper. But I didn't know quite if there'd be a market for it. Sometimes with artist colors, there is a market for it, and sometimes there's really just not because people aren't sure how to use it. That's why I always tell people that russet brown, $91.99, is our equivalent for burnt umber. And some people find that out and go, ooh, and some people find that out and go, meh. Why should I care? Hey, Dralcree, thank you. 18 months. 7.5 anniversary. Thanks, Crazy Ferret. Awesome. Yeah, she's getting there. We're still obviously in progress on her. I got to do more of the speckly spore stuff over on this hand, and I'm playing now. I got distracted with the base and decided I would try a glowy effect down there, so we're just gonna... We're having some fun today. We're just kind of kicking around, you know. This is a model very much that I'm kind of deciding things on as I go. So we'll stipple some more down here. When you've got this kind of pebbly broccoli texture, stippling is a great way to bring it out. And you don't even have to hit all of the little bobbles exactly. Oh, I went a little bit over on that one. Yeah, Valandar, that's the old joke with the burnt. You know, it was called that because it was actually a pigment that was heated to create that effect. Were you aware of that? So that's how you get. That's how you turn raw umber into burnt umbers. You heat it up. Taba, you know, I was a traditional artist before I got into miniatures. I was a 2D artist. I went to art school. And when I started getting into miniatures, I gravitated more toward the ready-mix colors and away from the tube and the traditional artist use. But now I'm kind of going back with a vengeance. Because I've been messing around with some tube paints from Scale 75 and liking those. It's kind of, once you've got a grasp of mixing and how pigment interactions work, I think it's a lot more fun than to play around. And then some of the artist colors, you finally understand why this was a cool thing. Although a lot of them now are being made with the same non-toxic organic pigments that we use in the hobby industry. Little glowy bits. Yeah, they may just have gotten to call it umber brown or whatever, right? Because it's not actually that pigment anymore. Usually it's BR something or other. Or B7, I guess. No, I think it's BRs. I think it's... Can't remember which. There's like a blue, a black, and a brown letter designator in the universal pigment system, and I never remember which one is brown. I thought it was BR, though. But yeah, a lot of them are various iron oxide colors, different variants on that now, and not actual. Although somebody was looking up and said that the original umber wasn't iron, but that just... I don't know. For some reason, I thought umbers were plant-based. Partially, but I don't know. I have a book on pigments, and I have yet to... You know what? I should just grab that. 1 second, guys. 1 second. I'm going to go out and see if I can find my pigment history book And we're going to settle this because I'm sick of, like, you know, forgetting to check this. 1 second. Where's my color book? Color. There. All right, here we are. Let's look it up. This is a cool book. It is called The Brilliant History of Color in Art. All black and yellow makes green. It's just, yeah, is which one? Blue varied calendril. Let me look up. Where are we? Various pigments. Greek white, Egyptian blue, red ochre, manganese black. Come on. Ultramarine. Come now, you must tell me. Mummy brown. Of course they have mummy brown in here. Maybe they didn't think that the umbers were interesting enough. Aw, I'm seriously disappointed here. This is a super awesome book, though. Let me see. I'm going to look at the ochres, because the ochres and the umbers are often crossed over. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm going to have to do some research. They do have all sorts of cool pigments in here. Cool historic pigments. But it is a fairly slim book, so I guess it is just going to... I might get more if I was actually reading about it. It does talk about all sorts of interesting things, like Indian yellow and madder red. Alright. A simple scan is not giving it to me, so I'm going to have to look it up later. Red ochre and yellow ochre are in here. I kind of feel like red ochre, like that the brown oxides might just be a treatment of the yellow oxide and the red oxide. But I'll have to, like, look that up. You do know that mummy brown was actually made of mummies, right, Zen? Or made with mummies, I guess is the proper term. Now I'm seriously disappointed that my pigment book does not talk about umber. They obviously felt that it was too boring to cover in their short little book. Yeah, ivory black is the colder. That's usually not the black you get in hobby paints. It's usually lamp black in hobby paints. Which will still slide blue if mixed with white. I think it's Mars black that goes the other direction. More of a neutral. All sorts of colors. And now you can't even trust the names anymore because so many of our modern colors, all of our modern colors, dare I say, are created in laboratories and not with natural ingredients anymore. It's much cheaper to just use chemistry. Alright, get that little bits. I can't link it, but I can tell you it's called The Brilliant History of Color in Art. And I think I got it at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, actually. In their gift shop. The Brilliant History of Color in Art. It's got some cool things in there. But yeah, now laboratories make those colors using different materials and things than were originally used. Some of the colors have totally, like, disappeared. Although there is somebody who makes a pseudo mummy brown, I think. Without mummies. It's got to be non-mummy mummy. It really is a terrifically disgusting color once you know what's in it. Yeah, most of the modern pigments are safer. I mean, the new non-cadmium cadmiums, the cadmium red and yellow hues, are made with the same kind of high-density pigments that Reaper paints are, because they're non-toxic and high coverage. I mean, not as high coverage as cadmium, but close. Close enough, probably, for most painters. Alright, so we've got our little blobbles on there. Now let us see if we can make them glow. I thought that was purple. I thought purple was made with beetles and shellfish. I wonder when quinacridone magenta was a thing. It's probably a modern color. So I'm going to use some white, and I'm going to hit the outside rim where it's right up against the blue. And then I'm going to make the color kind of go up these striations behind it. And I'm using white to underscore this because when you want something to look like a glow, it has to be near white where it's brightest. Otherwise, this is not going to look like a glow. So I start with the white. I might glaze a color over the top of it and then remark in some white in the brightest areas. According to internets, yeah. So it's probably a variant of the iron oxide. That's why I looked, but they've got a red and a yellow oxide in there. That's why, but I didn't have time to read through the whole entry pendering. I don't want to hold up the stream for my pursuit of paint knowledge. So now let's bring up some white behind one of these areas, wherever the glow would be hitting. If you watched my recent video on this, you know to draw lines from any glowing area. So if any of this area would glow from that would hit another area, then you need to put the white paint there. But a glow also reduces exponentially the farther away it goes from the source. So if I don't want this to be a very bright glow, which I don't want it to wash out everything, then I will keep my white very close to the surface and I will fade it out as it goes up these stalks. Yep, there you go, Valandar. Good deal. Yeah, I was going to say lapis was one of the original blues, and that was definitely an inorganic stone. Ground up gemstones. I'm gonna mix up some white with brown to get it a little bit duller and come in a little bit to these areas, because the light would definitely penetrate into those cracks down near the bottom. And the important thing when you're mapping in with white like this is that you can start to see the effect once you got it past a certain point. You will be able to like see that it looks like a glow. But you usually need to be pretty consistent and have it pretty much all mapped in before you see that it starts to look like a glow. Yeah, that's getting there. Now, the glow won't go down the front of the stalk because it's kind of recessed here, the little glowy material. So if I turn my model until I can't see the glowing area anymore. That's where the glow cuts off, right on that edge where I have it cut off. That's how to double check yourself. Turn the glowing area away from your eye slowly. And when you can no longer see it, any area of the model that you can see below it, it's not going to have a glow effect. Well, there's also woad, guys. Woad was used to dye. You can make woad in many different colors, but or do many different colors of woad, but woad is capable of dyeing cloth blue. And woad pigment is blue. Which, if you're in my $15 tier on my Patreon, you know, because I just did a video on woad before we did woad paint on our Tara. Woad body paint. And woad is plant-based. Off to work. Have fun, Shadow Raven. Thank you for tuning in. All right, so we've got that first bit mapped in. We're at the end of the stream, so I'm going to wrap it up before I start to like refine and color it in and stuff. I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out. I need to intensify the white next time we do this on stream. Focus it a bit more. You can see, though, that it's starting to look like it's glowing. So that's good. That's successful. So I think we've got some hope for doing little subtle glowing effects out of these little areas here, which is cool. Gorm for woad. Gorm for red. Yeah, exactly. So thank you all. Yes, and thank you for the link to my Patreon there, Quindy, since I just referenced it. I do have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/paintingbig. I do all sorts of fun stuff on there. I just did a thing on object source lighting. I did all sorts of things. Faces and craziness. Oh my. And then probably this coming month we're going to do a very basics of layering, intro to layering. That's what I think next month is going to be. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in. What we did today is we started a base coat on the front of her stalks, what she's emerging out of. And I figured I would do a glowing effect and some spore effects on there. We got that at least a little bit set up, and we got our shading and such in. We used some green in here in the cracks so that we can kind of pull the eye down and up from the green up here to the green down there, kind of move the eye around the model. This is always something I like to do. We actually glued her down onto a base too, so I have something to stick down so that I can paint the rear of her dress here when we get to it. That is what we did. So thank y'all. Oh, and we talked a lot about historic colors, but I apparently need to do some more reading. And I recommended a book, again, called, if you're interested, The Brilliant History of Color. Which talks about a lot of ancient pigments and what they were and how they came about and their history and interesting stuff. So thank you all, and I will be back tomorrow, Thursday. We're going to be working on Lisette, the elven sorceress, our wood elf sorceress, as we're painting her. Yeah, we're making some progress on her. So we'll probably work on her gemstone tomorrow, maybe her purples. But yeah, we can talk more about stuff like that in the future. All pigments, if y'all like to talk about pigments. But yes, sorry, I stopped to read Calendra's comment and it like totally derailed my awesome, smooth, like it's the end of the stream thing. So yes, we're going to go back to Lisette tomorrow. We're going to do purple. And then for Friday wrap up, we're going to start our brand new Golem from Greek Odyssey. So definitely be here on Friday. I'll see you all later, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And yeah, have fun. Oh, we're going back to fulfillment, she thinks. All right, guys, have a great one.